Britain's major arguing that the debate between the EU and Britain over catch quotas will remain politically toxic for decades after the British fleet was sold out by Prime Minister Boris Johnson in last year's trade deal negotiation. The fishing lobby group warned on Wednesday. Barry Dice, CEO of the National Federation of Fisheries Associations, said Johnson's agreements with Brussels would only increase a slight increase in the quota of British fishermen, leaving the UK coastal waters dedicated to British boats. He criticised that he did not cultivate. He also warned that the UK government's plans to expand marine protected areas and significantly expand the waters covered by wind turbines would further reduce industry fishing opportunities. Analysing the fate of the industry 6 months after Brexit, Mr. Dice said the deal negotiated by Sir David Frost broke the very solid guarantee between the Prime Minister and the senior cabinet. British fishing warns of post-Brexit toxic EU-British relations, as I said, and the Brexit troubles with Northern Ireland are not over yet either. The named David Frost says he understands why businesses are abandoning trade with Northern Ireland because his Brexit agreement has made it too much trouble to carry on. The negotiator of the deal, which created a border in the Irish Sea, admitted he had not fully foreseen the chilling effect of the, what he once again bullshitly calls punishing new red tape, which has left smaller firms facing higher costs. There are companies in Great Britain who decide that it's all too much trouble, reasonably enough, can't be bothered to engage with the process, Frost acknowledged. They are often SMEs, that's small and medium-sized enterprises, and micro businesses. Dealing with this is a significant call on their time, and they decide it's just not worth it, he told a parliamentary inquiry. That's why you are seeing some of the trade diversions and supply chain issues to Northern Ireland that we are seeing. The admission came ahead of Frost unveiling a new approach to the Northern Ireland Protocol next week, the Johnson Protocol, sparking fresh tensions with the EU. The government insists that the recent 3-month truce over the sale of chilled meats and availability of medicines has failed to solve the crisis caused by the Johnson Protocol. Brussels has been accused of intransigence in the ongoing talks and a lack of understanding of the sensitivities in Northern Ireland. Questioned by a Lords Committee, Frost refused to set out what his new approach might entail, beyond the aim to make goods flow as freely as possible between Great Britain and the north of Ireland. The Brexit minister also claimed that increased cross-border trade between the north of Ireland and the rest of Ireland is a problem he wanted to discourage. He revealed he expected £500 million to be spent on trader support services, saying that is the cost of the Johnson Protocol. No, he only said protocol. And he rejected the EU's insistence that there is no alternative to the protocol, pointing to a future consent vote at Stormont and asking, then what is that vote about? And he argued it would be inconceivable to press ahead with protocol-style arrangements after a no vote, and warned the politics would be quite significant at that point. The comments came as the fishing industry, I mentioned earlier, accused Tory MPs who had hyped the potential gains from Brexit of going very quiet as those benefits failed to materialize. The National Federation of Fishermen's Organizations protested that nothing was now heard from even the most vociferous supporters on the Conservative benches. Peter Hain, the Labour former Northern Ireland secretary, warned that Frost had lost the trust of unionists, nationalists, the EU and the Dublin government, saying sarcastically, "That's a pretty successful negotiation, isn't it?" The EU accuses the UK of failing to abide by the Johnson Protocol by introducing checks at Northern Irish ports and by supplying data on cross-sea trade, but London blames an overzealous implementation. Yeah, and that's the typical problem here. You heard what Frost said on the committee. he exactly knew what this meant when he negotiated it, and Johnson did the same. But still, when the TCA was agreed, and even before, Johnson lied about the border checks in the Irish Sea. Although they all knew what this protocol meant, they negotiated it and they signed it, even if they play stupid now. We are all making fun about they are too stupid to know what they signed. No, they are not too stupid to know what they signed. They know exactly what they signed, but they had a totally different agenda. They wanted Brexit. They wanted Brexit as soon as possible. And that's why they signed whatever was necessary to get the election victory Johnson got in December 2019. And he only could get it with a withdrawal agreement that would make Brexit in the beginning of 2020 possible. So they signed it, and that's their typical approach. Let's sign that now, we deal with it later. And that's exactly what's happening now. They didn't want that, but they pushed it through. They pushed it through Parliament to get what they wanted, and that was Brexit in early 2020. And on the other hand, the same thing goes with his discussions now with Stormont. First of all, I don't believe that Stormont will cancel the protocol after 4 years, because after the next elections we'll, I'm quite sure, see a different strongest party in Stormont. It's not the DUP. And the majority is shifting. So in Stormont we have already seen a vote last year on the protocol, and they voted in favor of that, although it wasn't binding at that time, it wasn't necessary at that time, but it was a very clear political signal that Stormont is in favor of that protocol, even with the current numbers of the parties there. And the next election, after the next election, it will look different, I'm quite sure. And so there's even more support for the protocol, because every reasonable person knows how important this protocol is to keep the peace on the Emerald Isle. And that will not change. And after 4 years, Stormont will not vote against it to keep the peace, because scrapping that protocol would mean something nobody of us can want. And only completely irresponsible people can work to scrap this protocol and to work for the consequences this means. And of course there are totally irresponsible people in that government, but let's just hope they are not successful. It will have to be implemented. Frost knew exactly what he negotiated, and they exactly knew what the EU is doing towards checks because of third countries, because the UK helped make these rules. When they made them, the UK was very fond of those rules. Now that they decided to be a third country, they're not so fond of them anymore, but they exactly knew what those rules are. Their signature is on that rule. And it's not new rules, it's rules made by the EU 28. Think about that. And I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.